coordinator. So just a few words, first of all, about introducing myself and my approach. So I tend to do these classes on Saturdays every 4 weeks. And my general attitude and remit that I give myself is that over the years, I will introduce all the primary skill sets, qualities, and abilities into the class in terms of meditation and mindfulness, particularly. So even though there are themes that are part of the Saturday morning, I tend to try and adapt as much as possible to the themes, but basically it's much more those skills and abilities which I'm focusing on. So am I just going to say yes to something? Okay. So where was I? So we start before the tea break with some meditation, and we'll do this period in 2 parts, which I'll guide through. So just first of all, a little show of hands. Who's really new to meditation? Cool, good. Okay, that's great. That's very good. That's one of the really good things about this class, actually. We have a wide range of experience, and because I'm particularly approaching it in terms of principles and skills, it's actually relevant to everybody. You know, even the very experienced people get something from hearing the principles in a slightly different way every time. So that's a good thing, I think. So I just wanted to introduce 4 things very briefly before we go into the guided meditation, and then I'll guide you through those 4 things. So there are 2 questions which are very relevant to the practice of mindfulness and meditation, and they are what's here and what's needed, if anything. So what's here is a sort of sensitivity and receptivity and noticing how you are, including your body, your mood, your emotions, your mental activity. So over time, as you get used to asking yourself that question, it just becomes in a way more thorough. You know, how's my energy levels, for example? You know, am I more up or more down? You know, am I feeling up for what's happening, or do I feel a bit down about it? You know, so you just start to get more nuance in the way that you ask the question, what's here? How am I? What's going on? Over time. So it's not a question that you just ask yourself once. You just keep on over the weeks and the months asking yourself that question. What's going on? You know, how am I? And particularly being aware of your body. I mean, not exclusively, but since very, very generally, people tend to be quite thought-oriented, it's quite good to address the balance and just to come into the body's language of how you are. So that's a sort of foundation. So out of that question comes what's needed. So a simple example is, let's say you notice that you're very tense. What's needed is to let go and to relax. So you get used to having that question, what's needed? What do I need to do? Going right from the beginning of the meditation. So the impact of that is that the meditation and awareness is both about noticing and being aware of what's happening, but it's also about being proactive as well and actually doing something. So another very simple example is if you notice that you're falling asleep, that comes under the question, what's here, how am I? Falling asleep, what's needed? Wake up. So it's pretty straightforward, but it's a good example. So I'm going to guide a little bit about that. The third area, which is very primary, is that in mindfulness generally and in meditation specifically, you always know more or less what you're going to pay attention to. And this is called intentions or area of engagement. So in these meditations, the area of engagement is going to be the body and the breath. So you're just clear about that. And then the fourth thing is really just relating to what's needed, is actually doing it. You might say, oh, I need to wake up. Actually wake up. You do what you need to do to encourage yourself to stay present and aware and engaged. So those are the four things. What's here, what's needed, general intention, and being active in keeping your intentions. Clear, generally? Well, we'll go into it. It'll be a bit more straightforward once I start to guide you in. So I think it's worth saying, every now and then I'll wince. Don't worry. I had an operation. I'm not looking for sympathy. Well, no, I'm not. But it does mean that it does occasionally hurt. But don't worry about it. I'm not worried about it. Just keep going. So, for the new people, those of you who are new, do you feel comfortable in your posture? Do you feel you could sit like that for half an hour? Mm-hmm. Cool, excellent. That's very good. So once again, hello to the online people. There's 16 people online. Just getting used to arriving. Just letting that word come in, arriving, settling. If you feel happy to, just close your eyes and arrive into your experience of yourself sitting here and how you are. Arriving. And then just very quietly and almost in the back of your mind, just asking, what's here? How do I feel? What's happening in my body and generally with me? And just noticing if there's, first of all, any restlessness, and just saying to yourself, calm and subtle, if there is. That's what's needed. You need to settle the mind, focus the mind into the body, keeping the initiative. And getting a sense of there's any sense of not wanting to do this, not wanting to be aware, and just noticing that. And then what's needed is to sort of give yourself perspective. Yeah, this is a good thing. I do want to do this. I want to be aware. It's worth it. Engaging with that. That it's worth it. It's worth the effort. And now the general intentions for the practice to come into the body and the breath. Just being clear about that for this practice. The body and the breath. And that initially the action is to stay with the experience of the body and the breath. So feeling the sensations in your buttocks and your seat, what it feels like, the contact with your cushion or your chair, whatever you're sitting on. So we're becoming sensitive to that. Does it feel comfortable, uncomfortable, hot, cool? Your seat. Notice if there's any tightness or tension in your seat or your legs and you're sitting, and just give yourself the directive, relax. Now bringing awareness up into your belly area and the breath. Clear directive to yourself. The belly and the breath. Noticing if there's any tendency to wander off, and just very kindly return to the belly and the breath, coming back. So you're directing your attention into this area, the belly and the breath, feeling it, staying with it. It becomes the center of your attention, the foreground. How the breath moves the belly as it comes in and goes out. If you need to engage better or more closely, put your left hand on your belly and feel the movement, only if you need to. Keeping continuous sense of presence with the belly and the breath, letting the experience fill you and your mind. Being open to all the nuance of experience. feeling the rise and the fall, the expansion and the contraction in the belly. And now broadening awareness to your whole body and just taking in the range of what feels comfortable and what feels discomfort, and just having an awareness that can just take in the range. And noticing if your mind jumps or moves away, if there's any discomfort, and just let it settle to take in the whole range, comfort and discomfort. Just checking if there's any tension anywhere in the body and just soften and relax it if necessary. And resting. And if you need to move, now's a good time. Staying with what's here, staying with it. A sense of openness to what's here in your body and how you are, and that range of comfort and discomfort. Coming back into meditation position again. Haven't already there. What's here, what's needed, and that the general intention is to adjust your effort in this next part. How you pay attention. So bringing awareness to your seat, your buttocks, experience on the cushion or chair, settling into it. And now, on the in-breath, feel your awareness going up your back. Feel the movement of the stretch of your back up as the breath comes in, and the expansion in the chest, and then the relaxation on the out-breath. So now, into the body and the breath, and how you make an effort. Now bringing awareness forward into the heart, chest area and the breath, and how the breath moves the heart, chest area, coming into it. So coming closer into the experience of the heart, chest area and the breath. So you're going to the heart, chest area, noticing how you make an effort. And if it helps, just for a couple of breaths, putting a hand on your chest, heart area, and feeling the movement. But it does move. Staying with it. So adjusting your going to the heart, chest area and the breath, so you can just take it in and feel it. Letting the experience, as it were, fill you and come to you in the heart, chest area. And just checking, is your attention going away into thought? If so, just decide to come back. Or is your attention sinking away? Just get in touch with your enthusiasm for practice. And now moving attention up into the nostrils and the experience of the breath there. Nostrils and the breath. Fine-tuning your effort so you come into it and feel it. So you're going to the sensation in the nostrils, adjusting your effort so it's not too pushed or too laid back. Adjusting your attention, staying with it. And letting the sensation in the nostrils come to you and fill you. Sense of openness. fine-tuning, adjusting your effort onto the nostrils. Just finding that sweet spot where you can stay with it.
Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone online. Welcome back, everyone here.
Yeah.
So just sit comfortably. That's the main thing for the moment. So, welcome back, everybody. So, for this bit, the talk, I wanted to introduce a particular way of introducing something which is very primary in Buddhist teaching, which is called the middle way. And there are many different ways traditionally of talking about the middle way. Very often it's talked about the middle way between grasping and animosity or aversion. So you're finding something which is in between just grabbing everything and pushing things away. But I want to talk about it in a different way this morning. And that is in a way much more positive. So there's I think a way of approaching middle way in a more kind of loose way is that there are pairs of opposite that are seemingly contradictory to each other, but actually they're both important. And having a middle way approach is what you could call a synthesis of seemingly contradictory or polarized experiences and bringing them together. So, for example, there's, in terms of meditation, on the one hand, you're wanting to calm and settle. That's one sort of facet. And on the other hand, you want energy. So on the face of it, these two qualities are contradictory. They're almost like two poles. But actually, they're both really important. One needs to have both, and there's a way in which you can be aware of yourself as honoring, you could say, both facets. So you honor the part which needs to calm down, which needs to settle, needs to be still and content. And you honor the part which has energy and vibrancy and enthusiasm for engaging with what's happening in the meditation and with others. So this awareness of being aware of both starts to bring them together, and they start to integrate. So you can be calmly enthusiastic, for example. You can have calm energy rather than just a calmness which is kind of slightly dull, or energy which is a bit frazzled. But being aware of yourself in these terms becomes really interesting. And in a way, it's a really important part of the path of transformation, where you become aware of your tendencies to be more in the quiet, still, content, or on the other hand, energetic, vibrant, doing side of things, and to sort of in a way be aware of both and let them come together. Now, sometimes this is easier to see in other people. Like Dan and I live in a community. There's 6 of us, and 6 of us in the community. I know, it's amazing. In near Clissold Park, and there's quite a wide polarization there between the very active, who just cuts hedges and mows lawns and does lots of things, which is great. Things get done, and he needs to settle and calm and sit still, which is a thing for him. And the other one I'm thinking of is it's completely impractical in a way. He doesn't really think about doing things at all. He just thinks about being, in this quiescent, equanimous state. And he is needing to find a way of getting out of, just this sort of, it can become quite dull, actually. So more energy, more engaged, more proactive. You know who I'm talking about there. And it's not him.
No.
And it's not me. So it's sometimes easier to see it in other people, and then in a way transfer it a bit, that awareness to yourself. Well, where am I in that divide, as it were, and how can I start to be more, develop the other side, as it were, to my go-to tendencies. So, I mean, just speaking personally, I've always been more on the active side, but I've always loved meditation. And I moved to one of our meditation retreat centres in Wales, and I lived there for 21 years. And people who know me said, how is that possible? That you're so active, you love to do things, you've got lots of energy, and yet you sit for hours and hours and hours quite happily. And it was actually training. I actually decided, that I was going to integrate these 2 parts, and it worked effectively, I think. This is one time I'd been on retreat at Vajradaka. This is a bit personal, not too personal, not overly personal, not frighteningly. So I'd been on retreat and loving the meditation, and at the end I guided this little workshop exercise on moving in the room from the body, especially from the heart chest area, and just asking yourself, what if I'm an animal, what kind of animal am I? So a metaphoric question, but very much aware of the body. And I got frog. And I got it immediately. I understood it. With frogs, they're quite happy to live at the bottom of the pond, you know, which is like being on retreat. And then they're quite happy to hop off into the fields, go traveling. And actually, the frog was a very good metaphor for the bringing together of those two tendencies. So, but that's, I'm not saying become a frog. Or you find you find imagery or symbolism or ways of relating to major parts of yourself, and become aware of them and enjoy them. Actually, I mean, I've really enjoyed being a frog. Okay, and the two parts. So there are a couple of other different facets of this process of bringing together seemingly contradictory qualities. So one that came to mind was we look in practice, in mindfulness and in meditation and in being aware, we're aiming to have a sense of constancy or consistency, that we keep consistently coming back and being aware and connecting. And this is quite intentional, and it's also quite disciplined. You know, you notice when your mind wanders off and you come back and you engage. Oh, I want to go. No, come back. No, come back. I mean, your voice might not be quite like that, but you know, that's what you're doing. You're basically, in a kind and gentle and even fun way, enjoyable way, disciplining yourself to be more consistently and constantly aware, with a sense of continuity. The other facet to that is spontaneity and adaptability. Things are always changing internally and externally in the world, and being able to respond appropriately to them is important. So I think being adaptable and engaging with what's actually happening rather than what you think should happen is really important. So these are two, you know, being adaptable and being consistent and constant in practice. I think of them as being quite different. They feel different to me, and I think they are different. So part of the process here is to become aware of what it feels like to be steady and constant and consistent and focused and staying with things, and that kind of more adapting, wild, spontaneous side that just responds to things, and actually somehow or another letting them come together so that you embody both. You have a sense of, for example, planning and forethought. What's needed in the future? What do I need to do? And at the same time, just responding spontaneously to things and being able to do both. So again, I don't have anyone particular in mind now from the community, but I think sometimes it's easier to see that some people you know, they're I know a guy, a good friend. He never goes anywhere. He's very steady and consistent, but he has managed to bring in the spontaneous element into that. So he has both together. So that's another kind of working ground, you could say, middle way working ground of bringing together two very positive things. The next thing I wanted to mention is quite similar, actually. And that is the relationship between being sensible and being courageous. So, one needs to be sensible. Sometimes see what is good for you, what will damage you, what you need to do, and assessing, that in a way which takes in, all the situation and the conditions. But at the same time, one needs a sense of courage to go beyond your usual patterns and your usual habits and your usual way of doing things. And that courage takes you into the realm, really, of responding creatively to life and what's happening. So, courage here is something you can ask yourself, do I have it? Sometimes I've asked myself and I thought, no, actually, I don't feel very courageous at the moment. Other times, I think, actually, it's verging more on recklessness. So I have to pull it in a little bit. So part of what I'm attempting to communicate here is you develop a vocabulary for yourself of these primary states of mind. You get to know the difference between courage and recklessness for yourself. You know what they feel like. And you choose for the courage, for example. And it's the same with, the planning, being sensible, caution. Is it too tight? Is it too controlled? What that feels like? Or is it actually quite loose? That's a much better option. So you start to get the vocabulary, an inner vocabulary of what those qualities are like. And in doing that, your awareness expands so that you can move between being adventurous, trying new things internally and externally, and being sensible and having forethought as well. Another little set, again in a way seemingly similar, is the relationship between being serious and being playful. I think people lean one way or another. I know a few people, they're just really serious about everything. And I know a few people, they're just not serious at all about anything. So I think that within oneself, it's quite good to be able to be aware of what it feels like when you're playful. And you actually don't quite know where things are going. Well, I don't know where it's going. And you just go with that. You're playful. You're exploring. But it's in a context of being aware and mindful seriously. That's the other side, that actually to be attentive is really important, and you can take that seriously. You can value it. So there's this sort of relationship between being serious and being playful. And again, in our house, I think we actually get the balance pretty good, well, don't we? I mean, we can be very playful and actually quite serious, at other times, and they sort of come together and they modify each other in a good way, I think. So I wanted to use this moment to talk about, well, the theme is the three jewels, and one of the jewels is community. So how we are together in the classes, on retreat, in our friendships, is considered in Buddhism to be a really important part of growth and development. Yeah, and that you take it seriously. You take the time, you make the time to meet people and engage. And at the same time, in that taking it seriously, you can be playful. So that's just an example. Okay, last one in my little set of seemingly opposite things that need to be brought together is intuition and deductive thinking. So deductive thinking is where your mind basically works things out using thought. It deduces, because that happens, this is likely to happen, or because I did that, that's now happening, or because I'm doing this, it's quite likely that will happen. And that deductive thinking is important. However, it needs balancing with something which is much looser and more open as a way of perceiving what's going on, which, for want of a better term, is being intuitive. And without defining it too closely or too strictly, intuition takes in uses all your faculties and gives you an answer. It sort of takes in your physical instincts, your emotions, your thinking, and it gives you an answer. This is a useful thing to do, that's not a useful thing to do. That's helpful, that's not helpful, for example. But actually, it's an uber faculty, it's a super faculty in a way, because it draws on your physical instincts, your emotions, your thinking, and brings them all together and gives you an immediate sense of what is useful or not useful to you. Now, intuition it needs to be approached somewhat with caution. I mean, I hate to say that because I like to throw caution to the winds, but actually one does need to be quite cautious about saying, oh, it's my intuition. I just feel intuitively that I should be in that situation. But actually, it's just what you want to do. So that's my intuition at the higher level. I need to lose my inhibitions. So you get to to be aware of the nuance of what intuition is like over time, and you get to trust it over time. And in that way, you bring together the deductive and the intuitive ways of thinking, and that you, in a way, there's a word for it. You can do everything. I can't remember what that word is. You can do it. You can do it all. You can be deductive. You can be intuitive. And in that way, you become a whole, more complete person.